Captain Jake Morrison stared at the screen in front of him. The numbers made no sense. His ship, the UES Discovery, had been scanning empty space for 3 days. This sector was supposed to be dead. Nothing lived here. Nothing moved here. The aliens called it the Void Sector, and even they stayed away. But the sensors were picking up something. Something big. "Lisa, run that scan again," Jake said to his science officer. Dr. Lisa Park sat at her station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. She had been with Jake for 5 years now. He trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. "Same reading, Captain," Lisa said. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "There's definitely something out there. The energy signature is strange." Jake walked over to her station. The Discovery was not a big ship. It only had a crew of 40 people. They were explorers, not fighters. Their job was to find new places for humans to live. With the war going badly, Earth needed every safe planet they could find. "Strange how?" Jake asked. Lisa pointed at her screen. "The signature is human, but it's old. Really old. Maybe 15 years. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. 15 years ago was when the war started, when the Zephyrian Empire first attacked Earth. Many ships had been lost in those early days, ships that had never come home. "Can you identify it?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Finally, she looked up at Jake. Her face was pale. "Captain, according to the computer, that's the UES Retribution." Every person on the bridge turned to look at Lisa. The Retribution was famous. Every human knew that name. It had been Earth's most powerful warship. The best weapons, the best crew, the best technology Earth had ever built. Then it had vanished during the first week of the war. "That's impossible," said Commander Alex Stone, Jake's second in command. "The Retribution was destroyed. Everyone knows that." "The computer says otherwise," Lisa replied. "The energy signature matches perfectly." Jake looked out at the empty space in front of them. Somewhere out there in the darkness was a ghost from the past, a ship that was supposed to be dead. "Set course for the signature," Jake ordered. "But keep our weapons ready. If the Retribution is really out there, we need to know why." The Discovery moved slowly through space. The Void Sector was dangerous. Old battles had been fought here. Pieces of destroyed ships floated in the darkness like metal tombstones. As they got closer to the energy signature, Jake could see something on the main screen. It was huge. Bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. The ship was dark with no lights showing. It looked dead, but the sensors said otherwise. Power was still running through its systems. "My God," whispered Lisa. "It really is the Retribution." The warship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its hull was black metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons covered every surface. Even damaged and drifting, it looked dangerous. "Any signs of life?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings. "The ship has atmosphere. Gravity is working. But I'm not picking up any movement inside." Jake made his decision. "Prepare a boarding party. I want to know what happened to that ship." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the Discovery's shuttle bay. With him were Lisa, Alex, and 6 Marines. They wore full spacesuits and carried enough equipment to survive for hours inside the dead ship. The shuttle ride to the Retribution took only a few minutes. As they got closer, Jake could see the damage. Burn marks covered the hull. Several sections had been hit by weapons fire. But the ship was still in one piece. "There," Lisa pointed to an open docking bay. "We can get inside there." The shuttle landed with a soft thump. Jake checked his suit's readings. The air inside the Retribution was breathable, but he kept his helmet on anyway. They didn't know what they might find inside. The docking bay was huge and empty. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Emergency lights provided dim red illumination. Everything looked normal except for the complete lack of people. "This way to the bridge," Alex said, reading from a map on his tablet. They walked through corridors that should have been full of crew members. Instead, they found nothing. No bodies, no signs of battle, no clues about what had happened. The ship felt like it was sleeping. As they climbed towards the bridge, Lisa's scanner began beeping faster. "I'm picking up life signs," she said. "Faint, but they're there." "Where?" Jake asked. "Lower levels, near the cryogenic bays." Jake stopped walking. Cryogenic bays were where crews went into deep sleep for long journeys. If people were in cryosleep, they might still be alive. "Change of plans," Jake said. "We're going to the cryo bays first." They took an elevator down 3 levels. The deeper they went, the colder it got. When the doors opened, they found themselves in a long hallway lined with cryopods. Each pod was designed to keep one person alive in frozen sleep. Lisa ran her scanner over the nearest pod. "This one has someone inside," she said. "The person is alive." Jake looked through the pod's small window. Inside was a woman in a military uniform. She looked peaceful, like she was just sleeping. A name tag on her uniform read Admiral Sullivan. "The commanding officer," Alex whispered. They moved from pod to pod. Each one contained a sleeping crew member. Engineers, weapons specialists, Marines, officers. The entire crew of the Retribution was here, frozen in time. "How long have they been asleep?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings. "According to these displays, they've been in cryosleep for 15 years. Since right after the war started, but why?" Alex asked. "Why would the entire crew go into cryosleep?" Jake was studying a computer terminal near the cryopods. The screen showed a message that made his blood run cold. "Emergency protocol activated," he read aloud. "Ship systems critical. Crew placed in protective suspension until rescue arrives." "Rescue that never came," Lisa said softly. Jake looked around at all the sleeping people. 300 of Earth's best military personnel, frozen and waiting for someone to wake them up. Waiting for 15 years. "We need to get back to the Discovery," Jake said. "We need to contact Earth Command immediately." As they walked back to their shuttle, Jake's mind was racing. The war was going badly. Earth was losing. Human colonies were falling one by one to the Empire's massive fleets. But here, floating in the darkness, was Earth's most powerful warship and its best crew. Maybe it wasn't too late after all. The Discovery received Jake's message and immediately sent it to Earth. Within hours, a reply came back. 3 words that changed everything. "Wake them up." Admiral Kate Sullivan opened her eyes to the sound of machines beeping around her. The world was blurry and cold. Her body felt heavy, like she had been sleeping for a very long time. Slowly, the memories came back. The mission. The engine failure. The decision to put the crew in cryosleep. "Admiral," a voice spoke nearby. Kate turned her head and saw a man in a uniform she didn't recognize. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison from the UES Discovery. We found your ship." Kate tried to sit up, but her muscles were weak. "How long?" she asked. Her voice was rough from the long sleep. 15 years, Admiral," Jake said gently. 15 years? Kate felt the weight of those words. She had expected to sleep for a few months at most, just until rescue came. But 15 years meant the war was still going on. "Or worse, the war?" Kate asked. Jake's face was grim. "We're losing, Admiral. Badly." Over the next few hours, Kate learned how much the galaxy had changed. The crew of the Retribution woke up one by one. Each person had the same shocked look when they heard how long they had been asleep. Commander Ryan Torres was the ship's weapons engineer. He was a big man with steady hands and a sharp mind. When he woke up, the first thing he asked about was his family back on Earth. "They're safe," Jake told him. "Earth is still free, but we've lost most of our colonies." Lieutenant Amy Davis was the tactical officer. She was young when the war started, fresh out of the academy. Now she woke up to find that she had missed 15 years of her life. Chief Engineer Ben Clark was the oldest member of the crew. He knew every bolt and wire on the Retribution. When he woke up, he immediately wanted to check on his ship. Kate gathered her senior officers in the ship's briefing room. Jake Morrison was there too, along with Dr. Lisa Park. They brought data tablets showing the current state of the war. "Show me," Kate said. The news was worse than she had feared. When the Retribution had disappeared, humans controlled 50 star systems. Now they controlled only 3. The Zephyrian Empire had grown stronger every year. Their fleet now had over 10,000 ships. "How many ships does Earth have?" Kate asked. "Maybe 200, Jake replied. "Most of them are old. Nothing like the Retribution." Kate looked around the briefing room. The walls were covered with screens showing the ship's systems. Everything was still working perfectly. The Retribution had been built to last. "Tell me about my ship," Kate said to Ben Clark. The old engineer's eyes lit up. "She's everything we hoped she would be, Admiral." The quantum mesh armor held up perfectly during the 15 years. The Nexus drive is still functional. All weapon systems are operational. Kate remembered the day the Retribution had launched. It was supposed to be Earth's answer to the Empire's superior numbers. Every piece of technology on the ship was the best humanity could build. The quantum mesh armor was special. It could shift between different states of matter, making energy weapons much less effective. The Empire used mostly energy weapons, so this gave the Retribution a huge advantage. The ship's weapons were unlike anything else in the galaxy. Gravity cannons that could crush enemy ships, antimatter torpedoes that could destroy entire fleets, particle beams that could cut through any armor. But the most important system was the Nexus drive. Most ships used hyperspace lanes to travel faster than light. These lanes were like highways in space. The Empire watched them carefully and could predict where ships would appear. The Nexus drive was different. It could create its own path through space-time. The Retribution could appear anywhere without warning. The Empire would never see it coming. What was our mission? Amy Davis asked. I remember we were testing something. Kate nodded. We were testing the weapon systems in deep space. Away from any colonies or civilian ships, the antimatter torpedoes had never been fired at full power. Then the engine failure happened, Ryan Torres added. We were stranded in the void sector. I made the decision to put everyone in cryo-sleep, Kate said. I thought rescue would come quickly. I was wrong. Jake Morrison leaned forward. Admiral, Earth Command wants to know if the Retribution is ready for combat. Kate looked at her officers. They were all tired and confused from the long sleep. But they were also angry. Angry that they had missed 15 years of the war. Angry that Earth was losing. Angry that their friends and families had suffered while they slept. Ben, how long do you need to get all systems online? Kate asked. Give me 6 hours, the engineer replied. Ryan, what's the status of our weapons? All weapons are loaded and ready, Torres said. We still have a full complement of antimatter torpedoes. 200 gravity shells, enough particle beam charges for 12 battles. Amy, I need you to study everything that's happened in the last 15 years. Every battle, every tactic the Empire has used. I want to know how they fight now. Lieutenant Davis nodded. Yes, Admiral. Kate stood up. Captain Morrison, please send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Retribution is back in service. Over the next several hours, the ship came alive. Crew members returned to their stations. Engineers checked every system. Weapons specialists loaded the guns. The Retribution had been sleeping, but now it was waking up. Kate walked through the corridors of her ship. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 15 years ago. But she felt different, older, more determined. The war had taken so much from humanity. It was time to take something back. In the engine room, Ben Clark was working with his team. The Nexus drive hummed with power. She's ready, Admiral, he said. Ready for anything. In the weapons bay, Ryan Torres was checking the antimatter torpedoes. Each one was powerful enough to destroy a city. These should surprise the Empire, he said with a grim smile. On the bridge, Amy Davis was studying battle reports on her screens. The Empire has gotten lazy, she said. They think they've already won. They're not being careful anymore. Kate sat in her captain's chair and looked at the main screen. Out there in space, the Empire was hunting down the last human colonies. They thought humanity was finished. They thought humans were weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Set course for the nearest Empire patrol, Kate ordered. It's time to remind them that humans don't give up. The Retribution's engines powered up for the first time in 15 years. The ship was no longer lost. It was no longer sleeping. Earth's most powerful warship was back in the war, and it was angry. The first attack came without warning. An Empire supply convoy was moving through the Kepler system, carrying weapons and food to their forces. The convoy had 12 cargo ships protected by 4 destroyers. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. The Retribution appeared directly in the middle of their formation. One moment there was empty space, the next moment a massive black warship was among them. The Empire ships had no time to react. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from her command chair as the gravity cannons fired. The weapons created invisible waves of force that crushed the Empire destroyers like tin cans. In less than 30 seconds, all 4 escort ships were destroyed. Target the cargo ships, Kate ordered. We need those supplies intact. Lieutenant Amy Davis worked her controls with quick fingers. Firing particle beams at their engines, she reported. Thin lines of blue light reached out from the Retribution. The beams cut through the cargo ship's engines but left the rest of the ships undamaged. Without engines, the cargo ships could not move or escape. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Hughes, "Prepare your Marines for boarding," Kate said into her communication device. Sam Hughes was the leader of the Retribution's Marine Force. He was a tough man who had fought in the early days of the war. His job was to lead soldiers into enemy ships and capture them. 20 minutes later, all 12 cargo ships were under human control. The Marines had taken the ships without firing a shot. The alien crew surrendered immediately when they saw the human soldiers. "What did we get?" Kate asked when Sam returned to the Retribution. "Food, weapons, medical supplies," Sam reported. "Enough to keep a colony fed for 6 months. But there's something else. Communication equipment. The latest Empire technology," Kate smiled. "Information was more valuable than weapons. Give it to Lieutenant Grace Webb. I want to know everything these devices can tell us." Grace Webb was the ship's communications officer. She was young but very smart. She could speak 12 different alien languages and understand their computer systems. Over the next few days, Grace studied the captured equipment. What she found was better than Kate had hoped for. "Admiral, I can access their communication networks," Grace reported. "The Empire uses the same frequency across all their ships. They never change their codes because they think no one can break them." "What are they saying?" Kate asked. "They're confused," Grace said with a smile. "They don't understand what happened to the convoy. Some of them think it was an accident. Others think human survivors did it. But none of them believe it was a single ship." This gave Kate an idea. If the Empire didn't know what they were facing, the Retribution could keep hitting them. Each attack would make them more confused and afraid. The second attack came 3 days later. An Empire communication station was orbiting a dead planet in the Ross system. The station collected messages from across the galaxy and sent them to Empire Command. The Retribution appeared right next to the station. Before the aliens could send a warning message, particle beams cut through their communication arrays. The station was silenced forever. But this time Kate had a different plan. Instead of destroying the station, she wanted to capture it. Sam Hughes led his Marines through the station's corridors. The aliens inside had never fought humans before. They surrendered quickly when they saw the heavily armed soldiers. "The station is ours," Sam reported. 60 prisoners, all alive. Kate wanted to question the prisoners. Through Grace Webb's translation, she learned valuable information about Empire fleet movements. She discovered that the Empire had divided their forces to hunt down human colonies. This made them weaker in each area. The third attack was the most daring yet. An Empire patrol was guarding a hyperspace lane near the Centauri system. The patrol had 6 heavy cruisers, each one bigger than most human ships. But the Retribution was bigger than all of them. Kate ordered the ship to jump directly above the Empire formation. The aliens looked up to see a massive black shape blocking out the stars. "Fire everything," Kate ordered. The Retribution's weapons lit up the darkness. Gravity cannons created crushing forces that bent the Empire ships' hulls. Antimatter torpedoes exploded with the power of small suns. Particle beams cut through armor like it was paper. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, 6 Empire cruisers were floating wreckage. The Retribution didn't have a single scratch on its hull. "Any survivors?" Kate asked. Amy Davis checked her sensors. "A few escape pods." "Should we pick them up?" "Yes," Kate said. "We need them to spread the word." This was Kate's real strategy. She wanted the Empire to know that something new was hunting them, something they couldn't understand or predict. Fear would make them make mistakes. The Empire survivors told their commanders about the ghost ship that appeared from nowhere. They described weapons that could crush metal and armor that could not be damaged. But their reports were so strange that many Empire officers didn't believe them. Fleet Admiral Zeltar was the Empire's top military commander. He was from the Zephyrian species, tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms. He had been fighting humans for 15 years and thought he understood them completely. "Impossible," Zeltar said when he read the reports. "Humans don't have ships like this. Their technology is primitive." But the attacks continued. Supply convoys disappeared. Communication stations went silent. Patrol ships were found destroyed with no sign of what had killed them. Each attack taught Kate's crew something new about their enemies. They learned that Empire ships were built by 12 different species. Each species used different technology, which made the ships hard to repair and maintain. Commander Ryan Torres studied the wreckage from their battles. "Their weapons are powerful but slow," he reported. "They're designed to fight other Empire ships, not something fast like us." Amy Davis analyzed Empire battle tactics. They fight in rigid formations, she said. They don't adapt quickly to new situations. If we can surprise them, they can't respond effectively. Dr. Lisa Park, who had stayed aboard the Retribution to help with research, made an important discovery. Their armor is strong against energy weapons but weak against kinetic force, she explained. Our gravity cannons are perfect weapons against them. The crew worked together to improve their ship's systems. They took technology from captured Empire vessels and combined it with human engineering. The result was hybrid weapons that were more powerful than anything either species had built alone. Graceweb cracked more of the Empire's communication codes. She learned about their supply routes and patrol schedules. The Retribution could now predict where Empire ships would be and strike at the perfect moment. After 2 months of attacks, the Empire was starting to panic. They had lost dozens of ships and didn't know how to stop the mysterious attacker. Fleet Admiral Zeltar was under pressure from his superiors to find and destroy this new threat. Increase patrols, Zeltar ordered. Double the guards on all supply convoys. This ghost ship cannot hide forever. But Zeltar was wrong. The Retribution could hide anywhere in the galaxy. With the Nexus drive, it could appear and disappear at will. Kate's crew had become the hunters, and the mighty Empire had become their prey. Fleet Admiral Zeltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator. Around him, his officers worked at their stations with nervous energy. For 3 months, the mysterious human ship had been attacking Empire forces across the galaxy. Every week brought new reports of destroyed convoys and lost patrols. Report, Zeltar demanded. His aide, a young Zephyrian named Velka, approached with a data tablet. 17 more ships lost this week, sir. The ghost ship hit 3 supply routes and a mining station. No survivors this time. Zeltar's forearms clenched into fists. He had been fighting humans for 15 years. They were supposed to be weak, divided, and nearly defeated. How could one ship be causing so much damage? Sir, another officer called out. We're receiving reports from across the fleet. Ship captains are requesting permission to return to base. Morale is very low. Zeltar turned to look at the main screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with red markers indicating recent attacks. The markers were everywhere. The human ship could strike anywhere, anytime. No, Zeltar said firmly. No one returns to base. We are going to end this once and for all. The fleet admiral had made a decision that would change everything. He was going to gather the Grand Fleet, the largest collection of warships the Empire had ever assembled. 800 ships from across the galaxy would come together for one purpose, to destroy the ghost ship. But Zeltar needed bait, something to force the human ship to reveal itself. He studied the intelligence reports about remaining human colonies. One name stood out, New Geneva. New Geneva was one of the last major human settlements. 2 million people lived there, including many refugees from other destroyed colonies. The planet had factories, farms, and a small defense fleet. If the Empire attacked New Geneva, the ghost ship would have to try to save it. Send orders to all fleet commanders, Zeltar announced. The Grand Fleet will assemble at coordinate 77 Alpha. We are going to destroy New Geneva and end this war forever. 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Kate Sullivan received the intercepted message. Lieutenant Grace Webb had been monitoring Empire communications, and she had heard Zeltar's plan. They're assembling 800 ships, Grace reported, the largest fleet in Empire history. All heading for New Geneva. Kate felt cold inside. New Geneva was home to people she had sworn to protect. But 800 ships against one was impossible odds, even for the Retribution. How long do we have? Kate asked. The Empire fleet will reach New Geneva in 5 days, Amy Davis replied after checking the navigation data. Kate called a meeting of her senior officers. Commander Ryan Torres looked grim when he heard the news. Chief Engineer Ben Clark shook his head. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Hughes simply stared at the table. We can't fight 800 ships, Ben said quietly. Even with all our advantages, the numbers are too great. If we don't try, 2 million people will die, Kate replied. Ryan Torres had been working on something in his weapons lab. For weeks, he had been studying the quantum reactions that powered their gravity cannons. He had discovered something that might give them a chance. I've been experimenting with cascading quantum reactions, Ryan explained. If we can overload one ship's power core, the energy wave might jump to nearby ships. It could create a chain reaction that disables multiple targets. Might? Kate asked. It's never been tested on this scale, Ryan admitted. The reaction could fizzle out after one ship, or it could spread to dozens. There's no way to know without trying. Amy Davis had been studying Empire fleet formations. They always arrange their ships in tight groups, she said. If the quantum cascade works, it could be very effective. Ben Clark had his own concerns. The Nexus drive can handle multiple jumps, but not dozens. If we're going to dance around 800 ships, I'll need to push the engines beyond safe limits. How far beyond? Kate asked. Far enough that we might not survive, Ben replied honestly. Kate looked around the table at her officers. These people had been asleep for 15 years while their friends and families fought and died. Now they had a chance to make a real difference in the war, but it might cost them their lives. I'm not ordering anyone to do this, Kate said. This is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to the nearest human base. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, Sam Hughes broke the silence. Admiral, we've been running and hiding for 15 years before we went to sleep. We've been hitting and running for 3 months since we woke up. Maybe it's time to stand and fight. The others nodded in agreement. They were going to New Geneva. Over the next 4 days, the crew of the Retribution prepared for the biggest battle of their lives. Ryan Torres worked around the clock to modify their weapons for the cascading quantum effect. Ben Clark pushed the Nexus drive to its limits during test jumps. Amy Davis studied every piece of information they had about Empire tactics. Grace Webb intercepted more messages from the Empire fleet. They're confident, she reported. Zeltar is telling his captains that this will be an easy victory. He thinks we'll run when we see how many ships they have. Good, Kate said. Overconfidence makes people careless. The crew wrote messages to their families back on Earth. They knew there was a good chance they would not survive the coming battle. But they also knew that if they didn't try, the war would be lost forever. Kate stood on the bridge and looked at her crew. These were the best people Earth had ever produced. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and officers who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. If anyone could perform a miracle, it was them. Navigation, set course for New Geneva, Kate ordered. Yes, Admiral, came the reply. The Retribution began its final journey. Behind them, they left 3 months of hit-and-run attacks that had confused and frightened the Empire. Ahead of them waited 800 enemy ships in the most important battle in human history. As they traveled through hyperspace, Kate thought about all the people counting on them. The 2 million civilians on New Geneva who didn't know they were in danger. The scattered human colonies still fighting for survival. The families back on Earth who dreamed of peace. One ship against an empire. It was impossible. It was hopeless. It was exactly the kind of fight that humans were born for. Admiral, Amy Davis called out. We're approaching New Geneva. The Empire fleet is already in position. Kate took a deep breath. All hands battle stations. This is it. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Geneva system. On the main screen, Kate could see the Empire's grand fleet spread out before them like a metal cloud. 800 ships, from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts. At the center of the formation was the Dominator, Zeltar's flagship. The battle that would decide the fate of humanity was about to begin. The silence on the bridge of the Retribution was complete. 800 Empire ships floated in space before them, arranged in perfect formations around the planet New Geneva. Admiral Kate Sullivan had seen many battles, but nothing like this. My God, whispered Lieutenant Amy Davis. There are so many of them. Fleet Admiral Zeltar's voice came over the communication system. Human ship, you are outnumbered 800 to 1. Surrender now and your crew will be treated fairly. Kate picked up the microphone. This is Admiral Sullivan of the Earth warship Retribution. I have a message for you, Zeltar. Go to hell. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. All weapons prepare to fire. Ben, give me everything the engines have. Ryan, start the cascade reaction on my mark. The Retribution suddenly jumped forward, using the Nexus drive to appear directly in the center of the Empire formation. Hundreds of enemy ships surrounded them on all sides. For a moment, nobody moved. Then all hell broke loose. Fire! Kate shouted. The Retribution's weapons lit up the darkness. Gravity cannons reached out like invisible hands, crushing Empire destroyers. Particle beams cut through cruiser hulls like knives through paper. Antimatter torpedoes exploded with the power of small stars. But the real surprise was Ryan Torres's cascading quantum reaction. When the first gravity cannon hit an Empire ship, the quantum energy didn't stop there. It jumped from ship to ship like lightning, overloading power cores and disabling weapon systems. It's working. Ryan shouted from his weapons station. The cascade is spreading. 20 Empire ships went dark in the first 10 seconds, then 40, then 60. The quantum energy wave spread through their tight formations exactly as Ryan had hoped. Fleet Admiral Zeltar watched in horror from his flagship. "Impossible," he whispered. "How are they doing this?" The Empire ships tried to return fire, but the retribution was too fast. Chief Engineer Ben Clark had pushed the Nexus drive beyond all safety limits. The ship could jump from one location to another in seconds, appearing behind enemy ships before they could turn their weapons around. "Jump starboard," Kate ordered. "Target those cruisers." The retribution vanished and reappeared beside a group of Empire heavy cruisers. The gravity cannons fired again, and another cascade reaction spread through the enemy formation. More ships went dark. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Hughes was monitoring the battle from the Marine deck. "Admiral, we're getting escape pod signals. Hundreds of Empire crew members are abandoning ship. Let them go," Kate replied. "Focus on the ships that are still fighting." Amy Davis was coordinating the tactical display, tracking hundreds of targets at once. "We've disabled 200 ships," she reported. "But there are still 600 active enemies." The Empire fleet was starting to adapt. Instead of staying in tight formations, they spread out to prevent the cascade reactions from jumping between ships. They also began firing in coordinated volleys, trying to overwhelm the Retribution's defenses. "Shields at 60%, Ben Clark reported. "The quantum mesh armor is holding, but we're taking damage." A massive Empire dreadnought fired its main weapons at the Retribution. The energy beam struck the ship's hull, but the quantum mesh armor shifted its molecular structure, absorbing most of the impact. "Return fire on that dreadnought," Kate ordered. An antimatter torpedo launched from the Retribution. The weapon struck the dreadnought's main hull and exploded. When the light faded, half of the massive ship was gone. Fleet Admiral Zeltar realized that his regular ships could not stop the human vessel. He ordered his most powerful ships to attack together. 50 dreadnoughts formed a circle around the Retribution and fired at the same time. The combined firepower was enormous. The Retribution's shields failed completely, and energy beams struck the hull directly. Sparks flew on the bridge as systems overloaded. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Ben reported. "We've lost the starboard particle beam array, but Kate had a plan. All power to the Nexus drive, we're going to ram the flagship." "Admiral, that's suicide," Amy Davis protested. "Not if we do it right," Kate replied. "Ryan, prepare the quantum cascade for maximum spread." "Ben, I need one more jump." The Retribution accelerated toward the Dominator, Zeltar's massive flagship. The ship was 10 times larger than the human vessel, bristling with weapons and armor. It looked like a floating city made of metal and death. "They're trying to ram us," Zeltar shouted. "All ships, stop them." Hundreds of weapons fired at the approaching Retribution. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two ships. The human vessel shook under the impact, but it kept moving forward. At the last second, Kate gave the final order. "Jump!" The Nexus drive activated just as the Retribution was about to strike the Dominator. The human ship phase-shifted partially out of normal space-time, becoming like a ghost. It passed through the Empire flagship's hull without physically touching it. But the quantum wake left behind by the jump tore the Dominator apart from the inside. The massive ship's hull cracked along its entire length. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure as power systems failed. Fleet Admiral Zeltar had just enough time to understand what had happened before his flagship broke apart around him. With their commander dead and their most powerful ship destroyed, the Empire fleet began to panic. Ships that had been fighting moments before suddenly turned and fled. The cascade reactions had disabled hundreds of vessels, and the survivors had seen enough. "They're running," Amy Davis reported with amazement. "The entire fleet is retreating." Kate looked at the tactical display. Of the 800 ships that had come to destroy New Geneva, less than 200 were still capable of fighting. And all of them were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. "Damage report," Kate asked. Ben Clark checked his systems. "We've lost 40% of our weapons. Hull breaches on 3 decks. The Nexus drive is offline for at least 6 hours, but we're alive." Grace Webb was monitoring Empire communications. "Admiral, I'm picking up transmissions from across the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading. The Empire fleet commanders are in complete panic." Kate sat back in her command chair. They had done it. 1 ship against 800, and they had won. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was floating around them in space. "Signal New Geneva," Kate ordered. "Tell them they're safe." Over the following days, the news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. Human colonies that had been hiding suddenly began fighting back. Empire governors found themselves facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed invincible for 15 years, began to crumble. Their fleet commanders refused to fight the ghost ship. Their soldiers deserted rather than face human forces. Kate Sullivan and the crew of the Retribution had done more than win a battle. They had changed the entire course of the war. They had proven that humanity would never give up, never surrender, and never stop fighting for freedom. The war was far from over, but for the first time in 15 years, humans were winning.